What's up, sister? It's your girl Danielle, and welcome back to the Pretty Powerful Podcast.
Being really grateful about what my body has done for me. I have a lot of scars on my body, but you know what? Those scars, when I was laying in a hospital bed and I almost died during chemo, or like after chemo had ended, my body saved me. It wasn't my time, right? And so I survived that. And then every little thing that kind of comes at me from, medically or whatever, it's like, wow, I've made it through that time. I think you develop a courage and a strength that you didn't know that you possibly have.
I got Christy Greenleaf. I said it correctly, correct?
Yeah, Christy Greenleaf. That's
Greenleaf is in the house, and y'all can't see her, but she has beautiful, bright pink on. And I am just so excited to have her here and to share her story, because you want to talk about someone who is like the reason why we're here is to talk about powerful women, right? To get out of our minds, to step away from the mirror and be like, step into your power, live your most powerful life, whatever that looks like for you. And so it's all about just digging into women's stories and just hearing what they've been through and how they personally have stepped into their power, and little nuggets that we can take from them to apply to our own lives. And Christy is one of those people that I met on social media. Thank you, social media. That literally just lights up anytime you see her post and just has a powerful story. So I'm going to shut up now because I want to hear all from you. But before I introduce Christy, I really want to quickly just share with you a little bit about her, and then she'll tell us in her own words. But Christy is a breast cancer survivor, an advocate, a speaker, and a writer. Whether it's mentoring women, advocacy work, or being inspired through sharing other women's stories, Christy believes in the importance of prioritizing yourself before your health prioritizes you. Whew. I feel like we all just need to repeat that like 20 times. That is good, Christy. She is super passionate about breast cancer screenings, which is perfect timing because it is at the time of airing. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Education and the lessons of inner strength, courage, and perspective needed to see the lessons in the face of adversity. Christy, welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to have you here. How are you today?
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on. It's super, I'm so honored to be here. And I've loved following your journey. First of all, let's just start there. I was just chatting with a breastie of mine last week, and we were talking. She was like, we were breast cancer survivors together going through treatment at the same time. And we met on social media. And so I laugh because I jumped on an airplane, not ever meeting this woman in my entire life, with a whole bunch of other people. And my kids were like, wait, hold on. You're getting on an airplane to go meet up with a bunch of people that you've never met online before. And you tell us all the time, don't be friends with people on social media. I was like, yes. So I'm like, you are one of those people that I'm super excited to get to meet. And I just remember following you on social media, watching you do your MC, and you have just developed, and I just love what you are doing for moms and girls and women in the community. I just want to acknowledge that. And I think that you're pretty amazing. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. That was I just got all the feels. This is going to be so good. You're amazing. So Christy, obviously I gave a quick rundown, but would you tell us in, your story? I know it's a long one, but the background of your story, who you are, how you got here, and then we'll just kind of dig in and just have coffee chat.
Yeah. So I am a mom, and I'm a wife, also a stepmom. My husband and I, we have a little bit of a Brady Bunch family. So we have 3 girls and a boy, between us. So 4 kids total. We live in Maine, which is absolutely beautiful. And I know you were recently here, so it's such a great state. And yeah, I was just living life like a busy mom, or a busy woman. I'm in my 40s, and I had finally decided to kind of take a little bit of a break. My life was constantly revolving around the family, as that happens so often as, working women or moms, whatever the case may be. And I decided it was time to take a little time for myself. What I was doing wasn't really working for me. So I actually got together with a girlfriend of mine. And we started out just by doing some simple, like little things, like just like going for a walk, like 10 minutes a day, or drinking 8 ounces of water, which at the time, while that may seem really simple, it was really difficult for me to find the time to do those things, right?
Yeah.
And so little did I know that it was sort of the universe's way of being like, you need to start slowing down now because your life is about to come to an absolute halt. So I had started doing that in about March of 2019. And in July of 2019, I actually got diagnosed with breast cancer after a routine mammogram. So that was kind of it was interesting. What's actually interesting, and I'm in the process of trying to get all of my medical records, but I had a scare 10 years prior when I was in my early 30s. And I had actually, that time, I had found a lump in my breast and had gone through, and I actually had like a big chunk removed. They went in several times just to make sure all the cancer was removed. And then I kind of went about my way. So I'm super blessed and fortunate. I've been pretty closely monitored, for quite some time. But yeah, there is nothing like hearing the words, you have breast cancer, to absolutely turn your world upside down. So
Yeah, I can only imagine. So you mentioned though that it happened, you went in for your regular mammogram. So that's like, you saying the screenings, like that's so important for you to your advocacy because that's where you caught it.
yeah. And it's really, so I am like a huge proponent of screenings and knowing your body as well. And when something doesn't feel right or feels off, right? I guess I've had the experiences where first time around, like I felt my lump, and then second time around, it was on a routine mammogram. One of the things, actually in the middle of my breast cancer journey, my husband was diagnosed with colon cancer. So for was his routine screening, like his very first screening ever, and they found out he had colon cancer. So I'm just a huge proponent of sort of self-care in the sense of making those appointments, scheduling those annual exams, knowing your body. If something isn't right, going and advocating for yourself and just having those conversations with your providers.
Take us through then. So this happened, you said July, right, of 2019.
Yeah.
And now we're in 2023. So what has life kind of been like for you over these past couple of years? Like take us through like what that feels like, what that journey's like, the mindset, all the things.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think you don't really know how strong you are. I think I'm a pretty strong and resilient, woman. I've gone through a lot in life, but there is nothing like a breast cancer diagnosis to show you truly how strong and powerful your body is. And I think that's just so important. So yeah, I thought that I was just going to have a double mastectomy, and then I went directly to implants because that was kind of all I really knew at the time. And then that's what I did. And then I thought I was going to just sort of be able to move on, take some hormone suppression medication for 5-10 years and move on. But that was not the case. And so I ended up having to do chemo, radiation, and immunotherapy. So by the time all was said and done, I had about 16 months of treatments. And then I've lost count of how many surgeries that I had during that period of time, because I am the 1% on the labels, like on all labels where they have the 1% warning of like, this could happen to you. That is me. So I had lots of side effects and complications along the way. I started my journey in 2019, and actually it's coming up on 4 years of when I actually started chemo. And that just really took a toll on my body. I wasn't really, prepared for what that looked like. I think you hear or you read or you see things, but nothing can ever truly prepare you for what that physically and emotionally does for you. So yeah, I went through that. COVID hit. So that was unique time because here, I was going through treatment and I could bring my husband with me. So we joke like our date nights used to be Mondays and Tuesdays. And now our dates were like date days on Tuesday when I would get chemo. So I went from having him go with me to all of my treatments to not being able to go at all, to having him not be able to go at all. So that was really difficult. And my heart just goes out to so many of the women who got diagnosed during COVID because so many people, they had to go through it, alone. And that's just really difficult in general, but let alone having to, not have your support systems be able to actually go in with you to surgeries or go in with you to doctor's appointments. So that was really, really challenging.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So, again, just listening to you, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, especially, being alone through that whole, not the whole process, but like during the 2020, and you mentioned before, like having courage and the strength and, that diagnosis and how that really shows you how strong and powerful you actually are and how powerful your body is. So what did you do, for me, I could imagine how getting that diagnosis and then going through the process and all of the ups and downs of that, how it would be easy to just be like, I don't know, like, I'm just going to cry myself to sleep every day. I'm not going to get out of bed. I can only imagine that would be a natural reaction. And I'm sure obviously there's probably some of that as well, but how did you find the courage? What are some of the things that you did to like stay mentally strong to where now, like, you're here sharing the story with us and, you're making jokes and things, like, how did you have the strength and the courage to go through that? Like, what are some things that you did?
I think it boils down to first and foremost rather is choice, right? You have a choice. Life is going to hand you hard things, right? For me, it was breast cancer diagnoses. It was all the complications that come with a breast cancer diagnosis. It was all of the complications that come from having treatment. And I could sit there and I could lay in my bed. I could cry all day long, but we have 4 children. And so I really wanted my kids to see, yeah, this sucks, right? Like this is pretty shitty. Like, it's, and especially when their dad was diagnosed, during my journey, like this stinks. What I will say is I absolutely did cry. And I tell my mentees all the time, I have a rule and it's like the 24-hour rule. Sometimes that's extended to 48 or 72 hours, but you can sit in it, have all of the feels, be sad, be mad, be frustrated, be all of that. But at some point you have to put your big girl pants on and you have to make the decision to say, this happened. I can't change it. What can I do to move forward? And what can I learn from these experiences? I think for me, survivorship was really difficult. Going through treatment, that was it was not a breeze because there's nothing breezy about going through treatment. But survivorship was really, really difficult for me because I was waiting for my life to get back to normal. And life can never go back to normal after a cancer diagnosis. That's just not something that's going to happen. Your body is never going to go back to normal after a breast cancer diagnosis. So it's really focusing on the things that I can control. I can control being grateful today. Which sometimes for me that, especially going through treatment, that meant I can control being grateful for the fact that I can actually put 2 feet on the ground today. I can be grateful for the fact that I'm feeling strong enough to be able to take a shower today or to get dressed or to walk down the stairs. And those little things are okay to be grateful for. They don't have to be these big, ginormous, things to look forward to. I think one thing that, when I was having a really difficult time after my husband was diagnosed, I found myself crying all the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, you need to get yourself together, girlfriend, like pull it together. What is up with you? And I just was thinking in my head, because it is really easy to go down that hole of like, why me? Why us? Why do all these bad things keep happening? Right. And I came across this quote. I don't know who wrote it. I've tried to look it up. I think it was Mel Robbins, but I'm not sure. And it said, "You have been assigned this mountain to show others that it can be moved." And I thought, wow, I need to change how I'm looking at this. It isn't all these things that are happening to me, to us, to our family. These are all things that are happening to show other people and our children, wow, like look at all of these things that have come our way and we're still standing. Like, so powerful.
That's an amazing quote. Whoever said it.
Right?
That's so good.
It's so good. It's like my life motto.
Yeah. No, I totally see that. So take us through then even, you mentioned your body will never go back to quote unquote normal, right?
Yeah.
Like how you knew it. So what does your body and your mind, like how does life look for you today? What is Christy doing today that helps her continue forward and accept what you can't control and control what you can control? Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay. I hate when people ask that question too. I don't know why I shouldn't have asked that. Because I knew what I was asking you and I knew you would get it. So, but yeah, tell us a little bit about like, what does that mean to you? And what does that feel like?
Well, so it's funny that you asked that question, because I actually, back in March, I developed an infection. And the infection I developed was in the breast where I had had breast cancer. And as I had mentioned before, I had implants. Well, long story short, I ended up having to get that implant removed. And because of the radiation and whatnot, I'm not eligible to have, another implant put in, but I actually didn't want them. I was in the process of trying to get them removed anyway. Because I think, when you're going through a breast cancer diagnosis, you don't know what you don't know, but knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have chosen to do breast implants. That's just my personal opinion.
Can I ask you real quick?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt? What is the mindset shift around that? Like, why would you not have done that if you feel comfortable sharing?
I'm absolutely comfortable sharing. So I think you don't know what you don't know. And when I was diagnosed, it's like, you don't really have time, right? You think that, okay, I've got to go, the cancer is going to keep growing in my body. I need to get it out. I need to get in treatment. I need to get all of those things, right? And I need to do what you sort of, not what the doctors say to do, but there's just not a lot of time to really think and do a lot of research, because there's so many things going through your head, right?
Yeah.
And so what I wished I had done was looked at more options. So a lot of women only know going directly to implant, right? And in the areas which they live, depending on, if people are in rural areas or near cities or whatever, there may not be a lot of education about what folks' options are. So a lot of women choose to go flat. There's been a lot of controversy around implants causing breast implant illness. The FDA has now issued a warning on the labels now for breast implants. And that wasn't even there, 4 years ago when I had my implants. But there are a lot of things that are associated with breast implant illness. And I do believe that I had quite a few of those, that were to be checked off. And so, yeah, just really taking the time to sort of like educate yourself about what your choices are, I think is really important, because a couple weeks for most people isn't going to make a huge difference.
Yeah. No, I think that, that's so powerful for someone listening, whether it's breast cancer or it's something else, but just really being conscious of the choice that we're making and doing as much research. Like you said, we can only do what we know at the moment, what we feel is right. And whatever that decision was the right decision at that time, right? Like, like you said, all the things going on in your mind, but it's really important reminder that, there are different choices, and we can, do more research and different things to make sure that we're making choices for our bodies that are right for us, regardless of what everyone else is saying or thinking or, whatnot. So I think that's a really powerful, message. Okay. So I apologize. I interrupted. Where were we?
I don't even know. My chemo brain will kick in. I'm not really sure.
No, you're good. So we were your life today, like how your body feels in different, like, how it's just different, but also you're living and you're making such, powerful moves in your life now. So like, just take us into your life today.
Yeah, I think it's also, so I ended up losing that breast and the implant. So my husband, as he likes to call me, I'm his one headlight until I have my next surgery. So I will have a next surgery. I'm not really sure when that will be. I have to still heal. My last surgery I just had was a month ago, so I need to heal from that. But I think, society has this vision of what women should look like. And I feel like when you get hit with a breast cancer diagnosis, like we don't look like what the quote unquote model woman should look like, right? And we have no hair, and we have either no breasts or one breast, or we've gained weight because of the medication that we're on and these drugs that are saving our lives. And so I think it's just really important to sort of check yourself when it comes to how you're talking to yourself, right? And what you say to yourself does matter, because what you say to yourself is also reflected on how our daughters or nieces or other younger women, girls, they look at you as role models, right? And how you choose to view your body and how you choose to talk about it matters. And I think for me personally, it's been really important for me to focus on the fact that, do I necessarily look like what I did, 4 years ago, 10 years ago? No. Part of that is growing and changing. And, people don't talk about women's bodies when they grow and change. They talk about that when you're in middle school, right? And high school, but nobody talks about it, what it's like when you're in your 40s and 50s or whatever. And so I think for me, it's just being really grateful about what my body has done for me. I have a lot of scars on my body, but you know what? Those scars, when I was laying in a hospital bed and I almost died during chemo, or like after chemo had ended, my body saved me. It wasn't my time, right? And so I survived that. And then every little thing that kind of comes at me from, medically or whatever, it's like, wow, I've made it through that time. I think you develop a courage and a strength that you didn't know that you possibly have. People would say to me all the time, I have a pretty positive attitude on things, but I absolutely get really upset or, sad or angry. And I think, again, it's just really important to remember, like, you can't stay there, right? It's important to acknowledge those feelings, but you just can't stay there, because you have to find a way to be able to move on in a positive manner.
And you had mentioned before that you have mentees now.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Like, how does that, and what do you find that a lot of those women that you're working with, like what's going on in their minds, and what do you find that needs the most support, and how do you help them?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, after somebody gets a diagnosis, it's almost like, well, what was treatment like for you, right? How did that go? And I think it's really, really important. And what I say to all of the women in the breast cancer world is, my story is not your story, right? My story is not your story. I am that 1%er, right? And just because something happened to me, in this way, does not mean it's going to happen to you. I think there are a lot of women, I think as of this year, there were 86 subtypes of breast cancer, which I always thought breast cancer was kind of a blanketed statement, right? Yeah. And no two cancers are alike. And so I think that's really important for newly diagnosed women to know. They want to know how treatment affects them. It's going to affect everybody differently. Everybody's bodies are different, and the way that they react are different. Also moms, some of the women that are moms, obviously their kids are kind of on the forefront of their mind, right? And being able to manage as a mom and going through treatment, the financial impact, because the financial impact is a really big, challenge for people going through treatment. Once treatment ends, it never really ends if you're lucky enough to have that. Our stage 4 girls aren't necessarily lucky enough to have that, right? And there's just so much involved with, a diagnosis. And again, community is just really important. So being able to find your people, whether that's in person, locally, or if it's, you're traveling to the place where you're getting your treatment. I mean, I've met some really good friends in the treatment room, right? Like it's just community, and finding your people is just also really, really important.
I just know like what you're doing is, and the message that you're sharing is so powerful. And I know you know this already, but for me, it was several years ago, I felt a lump and I went, and it took forever. Like it was, I know you know this, but it was one of the most like overwhelming, stressful times because it took like a month for my insurance to process. And they're like, well, if you don't want to use your insurance, you can spend $8,000 right now to like have the mammogram. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll pay the let's just get this done. Like, I'm ready to just move forward and know what's happening. But they then told me, well, if you're if you pay for it out of pocket right now and you do it is a breast cancer diagnosis, you're on your own for the rest of your treatments. That's what they told me.
I think breast cancer was always the old lady's disease, right? Like it was the grandma, no offense to the grandmas that listen, but it was the old grandma disease, right? And I was like, it is so important to know that is not the case. There are women in their 20s and 30s that are being diagnosed. And, I can't really think back to in my 30s and what that looked like from a financial perspective. I was going through a divorce during that time, so I did not have time for breast cancer then, in any way, shape, or form. I was like, no, sorry, got other fish to fry. But in talking to my breasties, I do have a lot of friends who have experienced the difference between diagnostic testing for mammograms and preventative testing for mammograms. And the way that they code for that is very different. And the out-of-pocket expense is huge for women, and they don't go get it done. I have, a couple girlfriends who every 6 months, they don't have breast cancer, but they are being very closely monitored. So they have to go back and forth between MRI or mammograms, and they pay $1,600 out of, a year to have that diagnostic testing. I am happy to say in the state of Maine, as of, I think it's January of 2024, they are going to cover that for women now. And that's huge. I think, part of the work that I do is in talking to people, sharing my story. Health insurance is a huge factor for people, right? And I work in the disability industry, and it's really a challenge. It's a vicious cycle. People have to be out of work, and then your income is less. And then some people lose their jobs because their health insurance is tied to their jobs. And it is just this vicious cycle that's just really, really challenging for people. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people understand it unless they've actually gone through it. So that's kind of a sidetrack, but
but that's a huge piece of this, right? Because
it's a huge piece.
That just adds, and as if you're not already stressed and in your mind and have all the things going on in your head already about just taking care of your body, right? Now you're also the financial part of it now just adds a whole nother layer of stress and overwhelm that, you should be able to focus and take care of your body, right? Without that added layer. But that is such a huge part of it, And so I went through that whole month of just well, I guess I wait now, because if I get diagnosed with breast cancer, then I had to pay for all of it out of pocket. You can only imagine, right, how much all of that would be. So I was like, well, I can't do that. Doesn't make sense. So I'll just wait, And so, so I can only, I know I keep saying this, but I can only imagine that whole added layer as you go through that. So you mentioned though, that now with sharing your story and all the things that you do. So tell us more now about like, you went through the journey, your message, your mountain, right? That whole quote that you shared with us that I'm going to write down and put somewhere. Right? Like now you're still obviously like you said, life doesn't go back to quote unquote normal, but what do you do now? Like, what does life as Christy look like?
Life is Christy. It is a lot of advocacy. It is a lot of making sure, I was diagnosed with a girlfriend. She and I were diagnosed at the same time. She was stage 4. I was stage 1. And it is spreading the message. It's sharing your story. It's making sure that you advocate for yourself, for your body to be heard. So many young women are not necessarily listened to, and those young women are diagnosed with stage 4. So research is needed. And for me, it's just really important to kind of go out there, continue to share this message of taking care of yourself. Self-care is going for those mammograms. It is knowing your body, right? And preparing for, something like a breast cancer diagnosis. You hope that that never happens, right? But by advocating for yourself, hopefully it is something that you can catch early on. So yeah, just really going out and just sort of sharing and supporting the women in the community. And just also, I think super important, busy working moms and women, and just making sure they take that time out for some self-care. That is self-care. Going for a walk, sitting outside for 10 minutes every day, that is self-care. Because if we're not taking care of ourselves, like at the beginning of my journey, right? I hadn't been taking care of myself, and then life abruptly came to a halt. So doing things, to keep your body healthy, to keep your body strong, working out, just being healthy, both physically and mentally.
Mm. This has been so good, so eye-opening, and just understanding more of like your story and the impact that you're making in the world with the advocacy and your speaking. Like, it's so freaking powerful, because I know that there are going to be women that are listening to this that are like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like that should, because we think of self-care, right? You keep saying self-care. And I love that, because we often think of self-care. So many people are like, oh, I'm going to take a bubble bath, and those things are great. Bubble bath, getting your nails done, they're all great.
Yeah.
But that is a piece of it that I don't think that a lot of us think of when it comes to self-care, are those important appointments that we get to make for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things when I was first diagnosed, I just remember like on a walk, looking and taking in like the smell of the air and the things that were around me, and really just taking the time to notice all of those little things that we take for granted every single day. And listen, don't get me wrong, I still do take those for granted sometimes, but I think it's like bringing yourself back to those moments, right? We just get so busy and we say, oh, I'll do that tomorrow or next week, or I'll keep putting it off. And then we put it off and it's too late. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the message really is like, I think was their quote, don't put off today what you should do tomorrow, or, something of that nature, right? It's just really important to make that time for yourself. Know your body, go get screened, make those appointments, right? If 30 minutes of your time is not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of your life, right? So
amen, sister. Tell them. All right, are you ready? You want to switch gears a little bit and do some like rapid fire fun questions?
All right, I'm ready for some rapid fire fun questions. Let's see how if I can keep up with this.
It's cool. We'll probably get sidetracked and have conversation. It's totally fine. Wherever this goes, it goes. Okay, so let's see. If you could only have one meal for the rest of your life, what would you choose?
Oh gosh. Okay. One meal for the rest of my life. Fettuccine Alfredo.
Ooh, do you have a favorite place where you get it from?
I really don't. Not anymore. I'm so lame. I am now I'm a gluten-free vegetarian. So it's so hard to find like the best gluten-free pasta and Alfredo sauce anywhere. But yes, fettuccine Alfredo.
Okay. So now I have to ask, gluten-free and vegetarian, is that a health reason or?
Yeah, I've been a vegetarian since I was 14.
Nice.
Since I was young. Yeah. And the gluten-free, I started doing that, gosh, like maybe 13 years or so ago. So yeah,
Okay.
I cheated a little bit, especially when I was going through chemo. That's just more for like health reasons for me and how I feel. But yeah.
Yeah. So you feel good being gluten-free and vegetarian.
I do feel good being gluten-free and vegetarian.
I
Yes.
love that. So tuned in to our bodies to know what we need. I love that. Okay. What is one movement / exercise that you enjoy that makes you feel powerful?
Oh, well, I used to be a runner. Pre-cancer, I was a runner, and I have realized that my body no longer is loving the running. So it's actually really funny because I always love like the sweat and like the mind, like you can just get into the running and you're like lost in your mind. And it's just like a good way to decompress. So now I joke, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of doing like the yoga Pilates thing, which is like, it's a different mindset for me because I'm like, I'm not a very Zen person. So it's been it's been a challenge for me, but I don't hate it.
That's good. Not hating it is good. I'm totally with you. I'm not one of those Zen people either. I'm like high intensity, bouncing off the walls.
Yes.
And so that yoga, but I know that is so important for my body and my mind. Like yoga is so good. So I love that we're like the same in that.
I love that. That's awesome. We'll have to do like a yoga session together or something.
Yes.
It's going to be a talking yoga session now.
Of course. We don't do things like normal, we'll
No.
spice it up. Okay, iced coffee or hot coffee?
Ice. Well, hot coffee most of the time, but iced coffee in the summertime.
Okay. So you like to switch it up. I can respect it.
Maine is cold, so you need something warm in the morning. But yeah, iced coffee in the afternoon.
I respect it. Okay, so best book that you've read that like self-help, if you have a book.
Oh, best book that I read. So I loved Glennon Doyle's book. You could do hard things, like We Can Do Hard Things.
Yeah.
I read that during cancer and COVID. That was an amazing book. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of what else. That's the only one that's coming to mind at the moment.
That's good. No, that's great. I don't know that I love her. And I read one of her books. I've read two. I don't think I've read that one though. So now I need to go get that.
That one's a good one.
Good to know. All right. Who is one powerful woman in your life that has inspired you?
My Graham. She passed away last year. But she was 97 when she passed away. And so she had a rough childhood and raised herself from the time she was 16. She married my pop-up at a really young age, had my dad and my aunt. She actually went through colon cancer. She got diagnosed when she was going in for a hysterectomy. And gosh, that was like when I was born. So at the time, like maybe, I don't know, 40 some odd years ago. Yeah. And yeah, she just was an amazing woman. Everybody loved her. She was kind of the heart of our family and just a tough cookie. She didn't take any crap from anybody. She spoke her mind. And yeah, she learned, we're an Italian family, but she was Scottish. So she could cook like the best Italians out there. So yes.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Such a good one. And let's see. What is your favorite form of self-care? If you had to choose one thing you could do today for self-care, what would you do?
Definitely a daily walk and listening to podcasts on my daily walk.
I love that. And so what is one of your top favorite podcasts?
I am a huge Mel Robbins fan. So I'm usually walking with Mel, also walking with like Jenna Kutcher or Amy Porterfield, or now I'm walking with Danielle and Pretty Powerful. So yes.
I love it. Yeah, those ones are great. Mel is always one of my go-tos. I love Mel Robbins. What is a daily consistent habit that helps you step into your confidence and self-love?
Oh, that is a really good one. I think for me, I've just recently started the practice of getting up every morning and giving myself 30 minutes of sort of self-development stuff. I've found that after my cancer diagnosis, the afternoons they can be challenging for me in terms of energy and focus and concentration. Those are really difficult for me. And so I've started making a practice since this last surgery in August of getting up and spending 30 minutes every morning on myself. So whether that's listening to a book like on audio, or whether it is listening to something as it pertains to like advocacy in the breast cancer world, just something that really helps me not only to learn, but that I can use and be able to, provide as resources to other women and in the breast cancer community.
I love it. Let's see, if there was one powerful piece of advice that you could leave for girls, what would it be?
I think that we get really wrapped up in what other people think of us. And that power really comes from loving yourself first, not looking for that love and acceptance from everyone else, but really learning to love and accept not only yourself, but who you are and what it is that you have to give to everyone in the universe, really, right? Like taking those things and skills that are unique to you and being able to just share those gifts with everybody.
Yes, girl. So good. So good. I freaking love you. I hope that I can make it to Maine, or you can come down to Ohio. We can hang out soon. And for everyone listening now who is like, I need more Christy in my life, where can they find you? Where would you like them to come hang out with you?
Hey, so I'm on Instagram. So you can find me on Instagram. My handle is Christy and it's CHRISTY_Russo_Greenleaf. I should probably simplify that to make it a little bit better.
I'll simplify it for you. I will include the link in the show notes so people can just click right there and go find you.
Perfect. They can come find me over there and we can hang out. I love connecting with other women and listening to other women's stories, sharing those stories and community, because it really just is about supporting and, connecting with other women.
Yeah, for sure. And, I can just say, like I said, from my personal experience in that one short month that I had that scare myself, I wish I would have had someone like you, because I was doing all of the Googling and like, what happens next? And, and it's so hard to find legit information of, like all the different things that are going on in your head. So I can only imagine all the women that are just so grateful when they find you and can connect with you and get support from you. So I'm just so grateful and blessed to know you and all the things that you're doing. But before we say goodbye, are there any last words, anything we didn't cover, or just any message that you would love to leave with our friends before we say goodbye?
I mean, I just think you have been assigned this mountain to show others that it can be moved. You are a pretty powerful woman. Your body can do amazing things. And I just want to thank you for all that you're doing in the community for moms and girls. And you're just a really amazing example of just strength and beauty for all of these women. So thank you so much for all you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, friends, for listening. Please go connect with Christy and soak up all of her awesomeness. She's a speaker. She writes, she shares her story everywhere and does all of the advocacy. So please connect with her and just be in her world. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, friend. I'll remind you at the end of every single episode, you do not owe the world pretty, but you do owe yourself to step into your personal power, because you, my friend, are a powerhouse woman. Go out and prove it to yourself.